Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about The Great Hunt, the second book in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. So, as usual, we're going to talk non-spoilery thoughts and opinions up front, then move over to the spoiler section where we can talk in more detail. So, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and let's begin. So, The Great Hunt is the second book in the Wheel of Time series, and I liked it a lot better than I liked the first book. The first book felt kind of derivative of Lord of the Rings in a lot of ways, and it was very dense, and a lot of the stuff that I needed to get in, like, engaged in a story just wasn't there. Like, it was very unforgiving on like the lore and exposition and stuff like that, which I kind of like, and I respect Robert Jordan for doing that, not like hand holding. But me personally, I could have used a little hand holding in that book. So when I got to this one, I was really excited because we basically started off learning a lot about the Aes Sedai, and I wanted to know more about them. So we kind of go through this little bit of a training thing. So early on, we follow Egwene and Elaine as they go to the White Tower to try to learn, try to start their training to become Aes Sedai. And through their training, through their novice stage and stuff, we kind of get to learn a lot more about how they work and the class system that exists, really a caste system that exists within the White Tower and like the Society of Aes Sedai and stuff. We get to learn and understand like why they don't lie and stuff and how that whole thing works out. I think that's really cool. That's probably like this whole chunk of the book where we learn more about and we get direct lore reveals and world building information. I think that's directly my favorite part of the story. While we get a lot of other world building and like exposition type stuff later on, it's not done in the same way as this first chunk is, and I really like this methodology a lot. I really like scenarios where we're learning, like so stuff like Harry Potter or the superpowered series where they're like in school learning to do what they're trying to do. I really like that kind of stuff, so I really leaned into that part of it a lot. So that whole section of the story is kind of happening separate from everything else. So after some stuff goes down early in the book, the Horn of Valor goes missing, and we have to basically go hunt for it. And I can't help but associate this horn with like the Horn of Winter from Game of Thrones. It's just that kind of thing. Like horns are kind of, I guess, was a thing in this kind of fantasy in this time frame or whatever. But in any case, like that's the main thing. We got to find the horn, and we need to find the dagger, that really poisonous dagger and stuff. And so that's the nature of the Great Hunt. And so, because Robert apparently loves to split up his giant party, because probably writing for this many characters in a single group would probably be maddening. So, we end up in a situation where our group is separated again. We have the ladies over at the White Tower. We have one group that is in this one area, then this other group that gets basically ahead of them. And it's similar to the first book. They go and do things separately, and then later on they have to meet up with each other. So, a lot of that stuff, like, I kind of get it, and I'm pretty much here for it. I can accept it, but it's very much not my favorite way of storytelling. Like, I really don't like it a lot. It kind of bugs me, and it feels, not really bugs me, I guess, but it really makes it feel padded out. It makes the story feel padded out. It feels like an excuse to have them need to get back to each other. And it's like a less clever way of having storylines diverge. And I just can't not see it that way. I'm trying to like just jump into it and accept it as it is and just, same thing. Because it happens in Lord of the Rings. I mean, granted, I struggle with Lord of the Rings a lot too, but so it gives me a lot of Tolkien vibes from that situation, from everyone being separated and we doing like a lot of trekking. So while all our characters are separated and going on different paths, there's a lot of little things that happen. But since the groups in these events are separated, for me, a lot of the stuff that's probably little, things that are going to come back later that are important little nuggets and stuff, that stuff kind of just washes over me because I'm still so like hung up on mentally trying to figure out where I am, because the jump to these other characters isn't very clearly done, and it's kind of difficult because a lot of these names are quite similar. So there's a lot of just like this series basically at this point already is going to require a reread. I'm going to have to go through the entire thing again. I already know, because there's so many details that I just know that I'm not picking up. One of the ways I know that I had an issue with getting into the story and having an issue with its meandering kind of pace is the fact when I try to describe it and try to like review it, really, like I have trouble, because it's like they were walking around and some stuff happened and some things happened. It's like I can't really get into any interesting description until I like try to describe the ending and try to review the very end, because that's where all the cool stuff happens. And I actually feel like this is a lot of where Brandon learned his style, like his Brandon avalanches he does at the end of his books and stuff. So I kind of feel like similar thing, because similar with Eye of the World, I wasn't feeling the series until I got to the end and all of this stuff happened, and then like I got better context and I understood stuff. Similar with this book, a lot of stuff happens, it all goes down, it's really interesting, it's super kick-ass, and then we get like this cherry on top kind of development for Rand, and that made me really like it. So it actually got me hyped for the third book, even though like 2/3 of the book I wasn't really digging that much, and then the last third kind of just like, yeah, but you like this enough to keep going. So I'm having, this series for me is becoming a very mixed bag so far. I'm not enjoying the pacing. The world building is it's sporadically awesome. Like some of the magic and stuff that I'm learning about, like channeling and stuff, and then the Wolf Brothers stuff, like that's really cool. And like this idea of sniffers and stuff, like I like all that stuff. But like the way that it's used and the way that it's done, apart from the Wolf Brothers stuff, that stuff with Prem is like just really cool. But like, it's just, I don't know, something about it is just not connecting entirely until I got to the end, and then all that cool stuff happened, and then there was more of an embracing of destiny kind of thing going on. So that's my quick little general thoughts rant right there, and I tried to keep it very non-spoilery. So I want to talk more detail about stuff like the pacing. Robert Jordan's pacing is very slow to me. Like this feels very slow. Everything is kind of like happening 10 miles down the road, and it takes forever to get to that 10 miles, and it kind of bugs me in a way, but it also, like, I think kind of lends itself to this relaxed kind of like melodic kind of like I'll use meandering in a positive and a negative way. It kind of leans toward like some stories that I really severely enjoy, I want to just linger in and stay in and enjoy that world. And I feel like if you really get into the story, and if you're really into these characters and everything that's set up in these first two books, then this type of pacing would be perfect, because you're kind of lingering in it, you're living in this world, and you feel very transported. But that it didn't work for me, because I'm not super deep into it the way I would like to be. While some of the events and things that happen in the story and the pacing is my favorite, I really do like the way the characters are written. The development and the intricacies of these characters is really unlike anything I've read in a lot of fantasy. A lot of fantasy will have characters that are like these archetypes, and they just don't stray too far out of their archetypes. But here, Robert really did some different stuff and like kind of made them different. Like the whole thing, I really can't talk about that because it's kind of spoilery. I'll just talk about that in spoilery, but there's some character stuff that happens, like there's some reveals and some stuff that people find out, and there's stuff like the way they would react to that information is different than I was expecting, and it's like cool trope subversion, but it's also like that kind of makes me like you a little less. Like, so it's like it's stuff like that. So there's a lot of fun stuff in there. Like he writes his characters very well, but his pacing is slow. The world is clearly huge. Like this world, I'm in the second book, and I desperately need a Silmarillion. Like I feel like I don't understand anything that's going on. And there's a point where they even do some multiverse stuff, and I'm like, that's really, really cool, and I love that a lot. But it's also like, what? It's just, there's so much to it, and it's so interesting, but it's so confusing, and it's like, it's so weird for me. This whole reading this series so far is just a weird experience, and I'm kind of digging it because it's so different. But I'm also like, I wish I was into it as much as I was into something like Stormlight. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the non-spoilery section here and jump over to spoilers so I can talk in more detail about those couple character things I was talking about. So, spoiler warning for The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. So, one of the character things I was talking about is when, like, Matt and Prim find out that Rand is actually the Dragon Reborn and stuff. And, like, the reaction to that was like, what? Like, it was just like, I would have expected, I don't know, it's so when Matt finds out that Rand is the Dragon Reborn, his reaction isn't what I would have expected, especially after the first book where Rand is basically falling all over himself, dragging Matt around, trying to do everything he can to save his life and stuff, dealing with that dagger poisoning and everything. But he kind of just goes, like, but the whole cultural significance of being a Dragon Reborn and the idea of the Dark One and like using the power and all this kind of stuff, I can I can conceptualize the idea that that has such a deep-rooted effect on them that even if your best friend tells you that they're this person who they didn't want to be, had no control over, and all this kind of stuff, you'd be more immediately supportive, especially considering he owes him so much. But also got to consider he is still technically infected by the dagger, so there's probably some parts of his personality that would have been more like, you know, immediately trying to help him and like not, you know, take so long to get on board with the kind of thing. And he would have just been way more immediately supportive and stuff if it was anything other than, you know, giant cultural demonic devil evil kind of thing. So yeah, another issue I had that was wrapped up in something I really liked was towards the end, like this cool battle that happens, like the way he gets to like show off, Rand gets to show off his sword skills and stuff. So I thought about this part earlier on when he was using the bow and arrow and taking out all those things and stuff when he entered the void and used the bow. I was like, okay, so if you just entered the void, then you should be able to basically make all those sword lessons like click on a whole nother level and just be epic. And that's basically what he does, and it was really cool. And like he's slapping around doing all this kind of stuff, but like I don't really understand how the projection sky thing how the battle was. I don't really understand that. Like, I don't understand that. Like, I don't quite understand the I guess it was just the nature of the way that fight was and the way it was channeling or something. I don't really get it. But so my issue with the entire thing, apart from the fact that the battle, you know, summoning people and all that stuff is really, really cool and really interesting. But it's like, what are we doing? Like, are we just going to every book go ahead and beat the dark guy? Like, are we like every book just going to like pull a Voldemort and just, you know, slap him down off of Quirrell's head and slap him out of the diary and then slap him out of the, like, are we going to keep doing that kind of thing? Are we going to like every book kind of beat him but not really beat him because it's an ultimate bad kind of thing? Like, if that's the case, I'm gonna get bored, and I'm already a little bored because the stakes of it was too low. Like, if you go up against the big bad guy, but it's the second book in a 14-book series, you know, he's not going to die or be turned or anything like that. So it kind of, it's pulling all of the menacing and cool badness out of Beelzemon, but however you say his name, the bad guy, the dark one. So it's like, I kind of get what you're doing. It's like chipping away, and like each time I think it's probably changing up the way everything happened before, because I suspect this whole series is one of those things of everything's been repetitive forever, but he's going to break the wheel, because I imagine Rand is going to win and like the Dark One's going to be defeated, and like it's going to break the wheel, and then there won't be any more repetition lifetime, but everybody will, you know, get to go forward and stuff, and he'll probably die permanently, but or just, you know, live and get married to Egwene or something. And like, so I kind of imagine it's going in that direction. So some of the stuff that's happening up in, you know, setting that kind of situation up kind of, I don't know, it feels a little gooey. I don't know, it feels a little ooky. I don't know, or maybe it's just because of the fact that it's very familiar, and a lot of other people have been inspired by Robert Jordan's work. So that stuff that I've experienced in the past is actually a mild ripoff of this. So it's just kind of an issue of what I experienced first. So I'm assuming it's something like that. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video because it's going on pretty long. But I did enjoy the story. I really liked the last act. I really liked the ending, and I am looking forward to going into the next one, because now Rand is in the position where he's more embracing who he is, and he's like just accepting it. So that's where I wanted to get to. Like, you are the Dragon Reborn. You're this big important person. Like, you're badass. You got all this power potential and stuff. Like, I mean, I know it's probably like a pipe dream because of the way this world works. Like, you really can't control your destiny, but I would do everything in my power to control it and change it and do something like that. Learn everything you can about this situation, learn everything you can about these prophecies, and find specific areas where you can change them and change everything. So that's kind of what I would do, and that's what I hope the direction he's going there. So the next one being called The Dragon Reborn, I really hope we kind of get some of that in there. So I'm really looking forward to the third one. So have you all read The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan? If you have, let me know what your favorite part was in the comments down below. So remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will talk to you all next time. Peace.